Your pancreas is one of the most important organs in your body, and it is one of the most silent. Unlike your heart, which announces problems with chest pain, unlike your liver, which swells and causes discomfort, unlike your lungs, which make breathing difficult when something is wrong, your pancreas gives almost no warning while damage is building inside it. The earliest stages of pancreatic dysfunction, and ultimately pancreatic cancer, produce symptoms so vague and so easy to attribute to other causes that the majority of patients who receive a pancreatic cancer diagnosis receive it at stage 3 or stage 4. Late stage, when treatment options are significantly limited. The 5-year survival rate for pancreatic cancer is approximately 12%. That number has not improved as dramatically as survival rates for other cancers over the last several decades, and the primary reason is early detection. We are not catching it early because people do not know what to watch for, and because most people do not understand what is actually driving the risk. My name is Dr. Michael Kent. I am going to spend the next several minutes telling you what the research actually shows about pancreatic cancer risk, not sensationalized, not exaggerated, but honest and specific and actionable. Because I have sat with patients who asked me why nobody explained this to them earlier. And the honest answer is that this information exists, it is in the research, and it simply does not travel from the research into the conversations that people have in their daily lives. That is what I am here to change. First, let me tell you what your pancreas actually does, because understanding its function makes it immediately clear why certain habits damage it specifically. Your pancreas has 2 jobs that are completely different from each other, and both essential to your survival. The first job is digestive. Your pancreas produces enzymes, powerful chemical agents that break down proteins, fats, and carbohydrates in your small intestine. When you eat a meal, your pancreas releases a precisely calibrated mixture of these enzymes into your digestive tract to process what you just consumed. The volume and composition of that enzyme release changes depending on what you ate. A high-fat meal triggers a different response than a high-carbohydrate meal. Your pancreas is reading what you eat and responding in real time, every meal, every day. The second job is hormonal. Your pancreas produces insulin and glucagon, the hormones that regulate blood sugar. When glucose enters your bloodstream after a meal, your pancreatic beta cells release insulin to signal cells throughout your body to absorb that glucose. When blood sugar drops, glucagon signals the liver to release stored glucose. This system runs continuously, automatically, without your awareness. Now here is why this matters for cancer risk. Both of these systems, the digestive enzyme system and the hormonal regulation system, can be chronically overstressed by specific dietary habits. And chronic overstress in biological systems creates the conditions for cellular damage, inflammation, and ultimately the kind of DNA disruption that leads to malignant transformation. This is not theoretical. This is the mechanism that the research identifies consistently across studies of pancreatic cancer risk. Let me talk about the first and most significant dietary risk factor that the research identifies: chronically elevated insulin. When you eat foods that produce rapid, large spikes in blood glucose, refined sugars, highly processed carbohydrates, sweetened beverages, your pancreas releases large amounts of insulin in response. Do this occasionally, and your system handles it. Do this repeatedly at most meals, over years and decades, and several things happen. First, your cells become less responsive to insulin. This is insulin resistance, the foundation of type 2 diabetes, and it is now recognized as a significant independent risk factor for pancreatic cancer. People with type 2 diabetes have approximately double the risk of developing pancreatic cancer compared to people without it. This relationship is bidirectional and complicated. Pancreatic cancer can also cause diabetes by destroying insulin-producing cells. But the long-term metabolic stress of chronic insulin overproduction precedes and contributes to cancer development in a meaningful percentage of cases. Second, chronically elevated insulin creates a growth-promoting hormonal environment throughout the body. Insulin is not just a blood sugar regulator, it is a growth signal. It activates pathways that tell cells to divide and grow. In healthy tissue, this is appropriate and controlled. In tissue that has accumulated genetic damage from chronic inflammation and oxidative stress, growth signals can accelerate the progression from damaged cells to malignant cells. Third, the pancreatic beta cells that produce insulin are themselves subject to oxidative stress from chronic overwork. Years of producing excessive insulin in response to a chronically high-sugar diet creates cellular wear that contributes to pancreatic tissue damage. What this means practically: the single most evidence-supported dietary change you can make for pancreatic health is reducing your consumption of refined sugar and highly processed carbohydrates. Not eliminating carbohydrates. Reducing the refined, rapidly absorbed ones that produce the largest insulin spikes with the least nutritional benefit. Sweetened beverages are the highest priority. The research on sugar-sweetened beverages and pancreatic cancer risk is among the most consistent in the dietary oncology literature. A large-scale study published in the journal Gut, following over 80,000 people for 14 years, found that individuals who consumed 2 or more soft drinks per week had significantly elevated pancreatic cancer risk compared to those who consumed none. The mechanism is the direct insulin spiking effect of liquid sugar, which is absorbed faster than sugar in solid food and produces a larger, more rapid insulin response. If you drink sweetened beverages regularly, sodas, sweetened juices, energy drinks, sweetened coffees, reducing or eliminating them is the highest impact single dietary change you can make for your pancreatic health right now. The second major dietary risk factor is processed meat. This one has the most direct and specific evidence behind it of anything I will discuss today, and it is the area where I think the gap between what the research shows and what the general public knows is widest. In 2015, the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer classified processed meat as a Group 1 carcinogen. Group 1 means the evidence that it causes cancer in humans is sufficient and convincing, not probable, not suspected, sufficient. The same classification applies to tobacco smoking and asbestos exposure, which tells you something about the strength of the evidence, though not about the magnitude of the risk. Processed meat consumption carries a much smaller absolute risk than smoking, but the mechanistic evidence is clear. Processed meats include bacon, ham, hot dogs, sausages, salami, pepperoni, and deli meats, any meat that has been preserved through salting, curing, smoking, or the addition of chemical preservatives. The primary mechanisms by which these products increase cancer risk include nitrosamines, compounds formed when the nitrites used in preservation react with proteins during processing and cooking, and N-nitroso compounds that form in the digestive tract. These compounds are directly DNA damaging. They create the kind of genetic mutations that, accumulated over time, drive cancer development. For pancreatic cancer specifically, a meta-analysis published in the British Journal of Cancer examining data from 11 studies found that each 50-gram daily serving of processed meat, roughly 2 slices of bacon or 1 hot dog, was associated with a 19% increase in pancreatic cancer risk. Not a marginal signal. A meaningful, consistent, dose-dependent relationship. The dose dependence is important because it means reducing consumption, even if you cannot eliminate it entirely, reduces risk proportionally. You do not have to make a perfect change to make a beneficial one. The third risk factor I want to discuss is one that surprises people because it is not a food, it is a habit around food, eating patterns that promote chronic inflammation. Inflammation is the immune system's response to injury or threat. Acute inflammation, the redness and swelling around a cut, the fever during an infection, is protective. It is your body mobilizing resources to address a problem. It resolves when the problem resolves. Chronic low-grade inflammation is different. It is the immune system in a state of persistent partial activation, not responding to a specific threat, but chronically stimulated by ongoing dietary and lifestyle factors. And chronic inflammation is now understood to be one of the central mechanisms driving cancer development across multiple organ systems, including the pancreas. The dietary patterns most associated with chronic systemic inflammation are the ones that dominate the modern Western diet. High in refined carbohydrates, high in processed foods, high in processed meats, high in refined vegetable oils, low in fiber, low in antioxidants, low in omega-3 fatty acids. The dietary patterns most associated with reduced systemic inflammation and with reduced pancreatic cancer risk in epidemiological studies are the ones that characterize traditional Mediterranean eating: abundant vegetables and fruits, legumes, whole grains, fish, extra virgin olive oil as the primary fat, minimal processed meat, minimal refined sugar. A large prospective study published in the International Journal of Cancer found that adherence to a Mediterranean dietary pattern was associated with a 31% reduction in pancreatic cancer risk. That is not a small number. That is a meaningful, population-level signal that how you eat across your life substantially influences your risk. The specific components of the Mediterranean pattern that carry the most evidence for pancreatic protection include fiber. High fiber intake is consistently associated with reduced pancreatic cancer risk across multiple studies, likely through multiple mechanisms including improved insulin sensitivity, reduced inflammation, and modification of the gut microbiome in ways that affect systemic inflammation levels. Vegetables, legumes, and whole grains are your primary fiber sources. Folate. Found in leafy green vegetables, legumes, and certain whole grains, folate is a B vitamin essential to DNA repair mechanisms. Deficiency in folate impairs the body's ability to repair DNA damage, the exact damage that, when unrepaired, drives malignant transformation. Multiple studies have found inverse relationships between dietary folate intake and pancreatic cancer risk. Antioxidants. The oxidative stress that contributes to pancreatic cellular damage is partially counteracted by dietary antioxidants, vitamins C and E, carotenoids, polyphenols, from vegetables, fruits, and extra virgin olive oil. A diet high in colorful vegetables and fruits is, among other things, a diet that provides ongoing antioxidant protection to pancreatic tissue. Now I want to address the reheating question specifically because it is where this conversation began and because I think it deserves an honest answer rather than an alarming one. There are real concerns about certain foods and reheating. They are more nuanced than the simple claim that reheating causes cancer, and understanding the nuance is more useful than the alarm. Reheating processed meats, bacon, sausage, ham, deli meats, at high temperatures can increase the formation of nitrosamines and other potentially harmful compounds. The concern here is real, but it is primarily about the processed meat itself rather than the reheating specifically. The baseline risk from regular processed meat consumption is the primary issue. Reheating occasionally adds a modest additional factor. Reheating starchy foods like rice and potatoes involves a different concern. Not cancer-related, but food safety-related. Rice can harbor Bacillus cereus spores that survive cooking and multiply if rice is left at room temperature. Reheated rice that was improperly stored is a food poisoning risk. The solution is to cool cooked rice quickly, refrigerate it promptly, and reheat it thoroughly to above 165 degrees Fahrenheit. This is a real concern with a simple solution. Reheating oils at very high temperatures, particularly refined vegetable oils with low smoke points, can produce oxidation products and aldehydes that have been identified as potentially harmful in laboratory studies. Extra virgin olive oil, with its high polyphenol content and higher resistance to oxidative degradation, is a better choice for cooking generally, including for foods that will be reheated. The honest summary on reheating: it is not the primary driver of cancer risk. The overall pattern of your diet across years and decades is what matters most. Occasional reheating of appropriate foods stored correctly is not a meaningful cancer risk. Regular consumption of processed meat, high sugar intake, low vegetable and fiber intake, and a chronically inflammatory dietary pattern are where the evidence is clear and the risk is real. Let me close by giving you something concrete. Not a list of things to fear, a list of things to do. Reduce sweetened beverages. This is the highest impact single change for insulin regulation and pancreatic health. Replace them with water, unsweetened tea, or coffee without added sugar. Reduce processed meat. If you eat bacon, sausage, ham, or deli meats regularly, reduce the frequency. Occasional consumption carries much lower risk than daily or near-daily consumption. Replace with unprocessed protein sources: fish, poultry, legumes, eggs. Increase fiber. Aim for vegetables at every meal, legumes several times per week, whole grains over refined grains. The fiber target most associated with cancer risk reduction in the research is around 30 grams per day. Most people in Western countries consume less than half that. Increase colorful vegetables. The antioxidant and anti-inflammatory compounds in vegetables are concentrated in their pigments. More color on your plate means more protection for your cells. Leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, tomatoes, peppers, carrots, beets, variety and abundance. Use extra virgin olive oil as your primary cooking fat. The evidence for its anti-inflammatory effects, its protection of endothelial function, and its association with reduced cancer risk is among the strongest in the dietary research literature. Maintain a healthy weight. Obesity is an independent risk factor for pancreatic cancer. The mechanisms include chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, and hormonal disruption. The dietary changes above, consistently applied, support healthy weight management as a consequence rather than a separate effort. Do not smoke. Smoking is the single most clearly established modifiable risk factor for pancreatic cancer, associated with approximately double the risk in current smokers compared to non-smokers. If you smoke, stopping is the highest impact change you can make for your pancreatic health and your overall cancer risk. Your pancreas is silent while it is being damaged. That is the reality of this organ and this disease. But silence is not the same as invisibility. The risk factors are known. The mechanisms are understood. The dietary patterns that protect and the ones that harm have been identified with enough clarity that acting on them is not a matter of waiting for more evidence. The evidence is there. What has been missing is someone taking the time to explain it clearly. You now have that explanation. What you do with it is yours to decide. I am Dr. Michael Kent. If this information was useful, please share it with someone you care about. Subscribe for more content that takes the research seriously and delivers it honestly. And take care of your pancreas. It is taking care of you every day, silently, without complaint. The least we can do is return the favor.